So during yesterday's afternoon stream, I was talking about how when I give out bad picks, I hope that you take solace in the fact that if I give a bad pick to you and it goes poorly for you, it's also going bad for me. And just like that, Tyler Chatwood scores -5 points as my top pitcher on the main slate. So I'm sure I led a lot of you astray, and I'm sorry for that, but I hope that you take solace in knowing that it impacts me too and my bankroll. Thankfully, most of you are very kind about that and understanding the way MLB DFS works. It's a high variance sport, so I appreciate all you for sure. But we're going to rebound tonight because tonight's slate is an awesome one for pitching. We have, I think, like 5 different pitchers you can justify using out of 26 different starters, and that's a lot more than what we usually have. So I am excited for tonight's slate to bounce back and get back in the positive bankroll department. Welcome on into the solo shot. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com, here to break down this 13-game main slate with lock set for 7:05 for tonight. Before we dive into the pitching preview for tonight, we do have rain likely in Philadelphia for the Phillies and the Braves. It's pretty consistent throughout the game, so that one might be a bit dicey to play, though I'm leaning towards guessing it plays because the Phillies will likely be very motivated to get this game in with all the games they have missed. I know that doubleheaders are just 7 innings now, but you still don't want 16 doubleheaders throughout the year. So they have motivation to get this game in, so I'm going to assume for right now at least that it will play. Similar story up in New York for the Mets and the Marlins, though. The rain there will be arriving later in the game. I would bet they're good to play and finish that one. So that one should be safer than the Philadelphia game. Winds are blowing out in Kansas City for the Twins and the Royals. It is also 85 degrees, so good hitting weather for both sides of the Twins and Royals. Winds are blowing out in Texas for the Rangers and the Angels. But it's also 95 degrees. And remember, this is now a retractable roof stadium, so I'd bet with the temperature being 95, they probably close the roof there. So I'd make sure when you're looking at the numberFire games and lineups page, do not account for the wind there because I'm guessing the roof will be closed. Only one game on the slate with a temperature below 70 degrees. That is shockingly in Oakland for the A's and the Astros. Just 63 degrees there. Downgrade hitters in that one. For years, numberFire's premium subscription service has provided our users with expert analysis, survivor pool tools, and most importantly, the fantasy football draft kit, all for up to $49.99 a month. Now, as a way of saying thank you to our community for years of support, numberFire is rolling out a new premium package for just $9.99 a month that will provide you with all the sports betting and daily fantasy tools you need year-round. And the best part is that expert analysis, those survivor tools, and yes, even the draft kit are now free. Head to numberFire.com, check out the new and improved site, and take advantage of the new premium package. Also, as a reminder, our 4 p.m. show, as I was alluding to before, is now back. Thanks to the weather being more lenient out in New Jersey. We are back on the air 4 p.m. Eastern time each weekday on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook pages. If you have questions about that night's slate, feel free to head on over there. If you want to chastise me for Tyler Chatwood, I deserve it. So feel free to hop on in over there, make fun of me, and ask any questions you have about the Friday night slate. Always a fun discussion. We've had some loyal listeners there, so really appreciate the conversation. Encouraging you to hop on over there and check it out, too, by subscribing to the FanDuel YouTube page. Pitching preview for tonight's slate. Trevor Bauer is the most expensive pitcher on FanDuel. He checks in at $11,400. Aaron Savali is $9,300. Zach Greinke follows him at $8,800, facing the A's. John Lester, for some reason, $8,300, and Julio Urias is $8,100. Went through a couple of guys in there that probably perked your ears up as being interesting pitchers. It's a good slate, and not even all the guys we're going to discuss were in that list. So a lot of pitchers early this year have had pitch count concerns as they get ramped up with the shortened summer camp and things like that. They either aren't stretched out or teams are willing to cut them short while we have the expanded rosters. That is not a concern for Trevor Bauer. I think we have to put him at the top of our list for tonight, despite the fact he is 11-4. There's a lot of value at hitter on this slate. You can make it happen, and you should want to. In the first 2 starts so far this year, Bauer, who is a robot, has gone 105 and 111 pitches, which technically could mean he's stretched out, but honestly, for him, that's not that long. He won 120 or more pitches 5 separate times last year. So maybe not fully stretched out, but regardless, it's more than enough for our purposes. He's also pitching really well so far this year, and both those starts were against Detroit. That's worth noting because they're a high strikeout offense, but a 14.5% swinging strike rate for Bauer in those starts, tons of strikeouts, just one run allowed, and he's building on gains he made last year after joining this Reds rotation. He started throwing his cutter more often in his second start with the Reds. It was about 9%, I think, in his first start, jumped above 20% in his second start, and he's kept that up. He's kept that usage up, and he's been doing that still heading into this year as well. We're up to 11 starts for Bauer in this sample, and he has a 3.51 skill interactive ERA with a 31% strikeout rate. So not only does he have a lot of pitches, he's doing it with high efficiency as well. He's facing the Brewers on the road, and the Brewers are a good offense, but they also have a 24% strikeout rate against righties. This offense has struck out a lot to open this year, so no big concerns with me on Bauer, and I think he is the no-brainer top arm of the night. And again, given the value at hitter, I don't think you'll have a super hard time affording it. He means you can't stack one of my favorite stacks, but there are enough value stacks out there to make Bauer very, very affordable. The other end of the spectrum comes our second pitcher, and we've only got 2 starts this year on Yusei Kikuchi, and it looks like we've got a new pitcher. Now, this is the night after Tyler Chatwood dropped a -5 burger on us, so maybe that makes you a little bit skittish. I don't blame you, but I think with Kikuchi, what we've seen the first 2 starts so far this year has been so good, we have to throw out what we saw with Kikuchi last year. And doing so, throwing out last year's numbers, would put us on him against the Rockies. There was talk all offseason about that Kikuchi's velocity would be up this year relative to where it was last year. And that was true during the first spring training back in March. That's carried over into the regular season now in July and August. The four-seam fastball velocity for Kikuchi is at 95.5 miles per hour, according to Fangraphs. That's up 2.6 miles per hour from where it was last year. Massive gains in the fastball, but it's actually, he's had more gains on his off-speed stuff. His slider is at 92.8 miles per hour. That is an increase of 6.5 miles per hour. The curveball is basically a different pitch. It's not the same pitch. It's up 10 miles per hour. That's not, there's just something off in the tracking, the classification, or what. Either way, dude is throwing hard. Velocity matters, so it's no shock that Kikuchi is just dusting dudes right now. He has a 14.5% swinging strike rate in those 2 starts, and what makes it even more impressive is that he did that against the Astros and the Athletics, 2 super low strikeout opponents, and now he's facing the Rockies. They are a much more friendly opponent from a strikeout perspective. They have a 25% strikeout rate against lefties since the start of last year. They've been in Colorado for about a week now, so readjusting to the elevation as they head to Seattle instead. And yeah, Kikuchi is still walking batters. That's why he is below Bauer for me, despite the salary savings. But I am willing to buy into what he has done against those quality opponents. We got big salary savings here, $7,200. As we saw with Chatwood last night, again, buying the small samples can go poorly, and you're opening yourself up to a lot of variance. But for tournaments, I still dig it. I want to get Yusei Kikuchi while I can still get him with an inefficient salary, and I think that is the case for tonight. So Yusei Kikuchi, my number 2 pitcher behind Trevor Bauer for tonight. We're actually going to go up a bit in salary for the third pitcher tonight, and I think there are a lot of good options here. Aaron Savali, again, really good option against the White Sox. He has been awesome so far this year. Griffin Canning is kind of similar to Kikuchi, where he's done really well against super tough opponents and now gets the Rangers. High strikeout team, so I'd consider Canning too, but we'll talk about Luke Weaver in Things to Watch. My third starter for tonight is going to be Julio Urias at $8,100 against the Giants. Urias hasn't gotten a ton of strikeouts so far in his first 2 starts, so dissimilar to Bauer and Kikuchi in that way. And it's more concerning with Urias because one of those starts was against the Giants, not a super high strikeout team. But the whiffs have been there, and that stabilizes more quickly than strikeout rate because it's over a sample of 76 or 89 pitches as opposed to 20 or so batters faced. Urias has gotten swings and misses about 13% of the time so far, is 12.8% against the Giants, 13.3% against the Diamondbacks. So despite the lack of strikeouts, his stuff is playing well, and he is fooling batters. And he's had still good results despite the lack of strikeouts. He's allowed just 3 earned runs in 11 innings. Now, Urias has to face the Giants again, and their lineup is better than what it was the first time he faced them. Plus, they will be full of right-handed batters because the Giants are so platoon-heavy, but Urias still had a 25% strikeout rate against righties last year. He also is upping his changeup usage this year. Typically, that's a pitch that you use to help you against right-handed batters. And if you look at the numbers on that changeup so far, it's looked really good. And again, Urias is only $8,100. I think that you can kind of play this one how you want from a pitching perspective for tonight. Bauer is worthwhile on the top end, as is Savali. Then you have Mccutchen and Urias on the bottom end. So it's a really fun slate in that regard. And thankfully, the stacks mesh up as well. So let's take a look at those stacks for today. I think that one of the big advantages of using Mccutchen or Urias is that you can afford Urias' teammates, the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're facing Jeff Samardzija tonight. And this game is in LA, not San Francisco. So that's going to make the Dodgers my top stack of the night this evening. Samardzija is really struggling to open this year. He has just a 6.2% swinging strike rate in his first two starts, and that's despite facing the Padres and the Rangers. I think it's important to kind of dig into the opponents that guys face and adjust based on that. That's why I was pumping Mccutchen up, and I think it's worth bumping Samardzija down because of those teams he's faced. He has just two total strikeouts in those two games against the Padres and the Rangers, and now he's facing the Dodgers on the road. That's not great, Bob. The lack of strikeouts for Samardzija is not a new thing. He has been throwing a large number of both sliders and cutters over the past 9 starts, similar movement, and in that time, he has a 5.91 skill interactive ERA with an 11% strikeout rate. That is a pretty large sample, 9 starts and an 11% strikeout rate. The hard hit rate is not that bad at 35%, but it was at 40% for the full season last year. If that hard hit rate slips just a bit, honestly, if it stays the same, it's still trouble, but Samardzija is going to be in even worse shape than he is right now. So I think we should stack against Samardzija fairly often as things stand right now, and having him face the Dodgers just makes it more of a no-brainer. The Dodgers also had an interesting lineup last night. There was no Mookie Betts once again, so things will probably change, but I think that what was interesting is that they moved A.J. Pollock into the leadoff spot yesterday. He was facing a righty. He's only $3,000, and Pollock has hit the ball really well to open the year so far. So maybe Betts comes back tonight. That pushed Pollock back down in the order, but I think given that he was there while Jock Peterson was lower, we can probably project Pollock to bat to like 6th or so tonight. And at $3,000, the way he's been playing, that's not all that bad. He did hit 6th the last time that Betts played against a righty. So I would not expect Pollock to hit lower than that. I think this is an easy team to stack if you go Mccutchen or Urias. And I think that I would like to do so for tonight, just because getting access to someone or a Dodgers lineup as lethal as this one, pretty attractive for me. The Phillies are kind of in a middle zone here, where they're not quite the Dodgers, but they're also not quite a value stack. So maybe there's someone you pair with a value stack when you go with Bauer or something of that nature. But regardless, I want to go here, weather permitting, because, again, things look a little bit dicey in Philadelphia for tonight. The bats seem to be working just fine after the layoff. They scored 11 runs in the first half of their doubleheader this week. So I don't have any major lingering concerns about the layoff, and I think that means we can stack them here against Kyle Wright. Wright has struggled out of the gate so far for Atlanta. He has thrown just 6 innings, but that's not because of pitch count. He went 75 pitches in his second start, but it's because he can't find the strike zone. He has walked 21% of the batters he has faced so far this year. That's compared to a 24% strikeout rate, so just a 3 percentage point gap between the two. It's a small sample, but it's also a continuation of what we saw with Wright last year. He had a 14% walk rate across 19 2/3 innings. That was, again, a small sample there too, but we've seen it then, we've seen it now. That starts to add up eventually. Wright was fine in AAA before he got called up, but it wasn't anything to really fear from a stacking perspective. 24% strikeout rate there, 7% walk rate, and not enough ground balls to push me off here either. So I think it is a good time to go with the Phillies and stack against Wright. Again, weather permitting, because things do look a bit dicey there. I think Andrew McCutchen is a key piece of this, assuming that he does start here. He is only $2,700. He is not striking out too much to open the year after the long layoff last year. 38% hard hit rate, a 39% fly ball rate versus righties since the start of last year. So I want to use McCutchen as a tool for getting up to guys like Harper and like Hoskins. And honestly, like If McCutchen doesn't play, Adam Hazley'd probably bat leadoff. He's $2,400. So I think regardless, you're probably going to want to check out the Phillies leadoff batter, whether that's McCutchen or Hazley, because they're going to give you some savings to help you get up to the studs on this Phillies team. For the final stack, we're going to go to another team that's coming off a long layoff, and this one has not looked good so far. I tried stacking the Blue Jays earlier this week, and it did not work out. They had just a couple of runs and 5 hits, and they're still trying to, it seems at least, work back into the groove after the time off due to COVID. So this one might not work again, and they're not a great offense overall. So keep that in mind, but I think we have to go here against Ryan Weber. Weber has made 2 starts in 2020. He does not yet have a single strikeout in this year. As a starter since the start of last year, Weber has an 8% strikeout rate with a 10% walk rate. It's just really hard to succeed in the big leagues. With the way hitters are striking the ball, if you can't get strikeouts, that's going to lead to some bad things. And that's what we've seen so far this year. He's let up 9 runs across 7 innings, and one of those games is against the Yankees. But on the other hand, the other was against the Orioles. If they can do work, the Orioles can do work, I think the Blue Jays should be able to as well. There is definitely still risk here, but I am good with it thanks to the upside within this offense. And the Blue Jays did get a bit of a salary bump because of the matchup with the Red Sox, but we can still get some values here, specifically Lourdes Gurriel. He is $2,700. He has a 41% hard hit rate and a 43% fly ball rate versus righties since the start of last year. Rowdy Tellez didn't get great results last year, but a 41% hard hit rate, 40% fly ball rate, batting in the middle of that order. If you want to try to get Travis Shaw before things truly click for him, he's $2,500. So even though the salaries on the Blue Jays did go up, it's not as if they are prohibitively expensive or anything. Randall Grichuk is $2,600 too, so you've got some value within this team, and I'd be inclined to check it out and try to use them as a tool for getting up to Trevor Bauer as your starting pitcher. Let's finish up with things to watch for tonight. Mentioned before, I'm interested in buying low on Luke Weaver here because the first 2 starts for Luke Weaver, they have been pretty stanky. He has allowed 12 earned runs in 7 1/3 innings. One of those was against the Dodgers, so, a little bit of leniency there. But the other was against the very same Padres team he will face tonight. This Padres team has showed a lot of pop so far this year. Weaver has allowed, just disgusting amounts of hard contact. That hurt him last year, too. So it's not like this is a new issue for Luke Weaver or a small sample issue. But the velocity is good, the pitch count is solid, and the long-term numbers on Weaver are still really good. So I'm willing to give him a swing only in tournaments. He has $6,600. He's facing a high strikeout team. I'm guessing people will be scared off by his numbers so far this year. That's a pretty good combination. So I think Weaver is a good kind of under-the-radar type guy. I mentioned offhand Griffin Canning earlier. Canning has looked good in his first couple of starts. 4.15 skill interactive ERA over his past 6 outings when he's been throwing his fastball less, 24% strikeout rate and facing a team that strikes out a lot. So I think if you're looking for under-the-radar type pitchers, Luke Weaver, Griffin Canning will be the top 2 guys on my list, and neither guy will run you a whole lot in the salary department. For another higher salaried stack, like if you are going with a guy like Weaver or Mccutchen or Urias, I would check out the Minnesota Twins against Jacob Junis. Junis doesn't get enough strikeouts to mitigate the hard contact he allows. He allowed a 43% hard hit rate last year with a 21% strikeout rate, and the trends have continued so far this year for Junis. He's gotten better since the start of last year, but still a lot of hard contact, not enough strikeouts, and that bodes well for the Twins. As mentioned before, this is really good hitting weather in Kansas City, so I think that's intriguing as well, and you can definitely afford guys like Nelson Cruz. Cruz honestly is I know he's expensive, but I think he's underpriced at $4,100. So Cruz and Kepler are guys from a studs perspective you can go to. If Josh Donaldson plays, you could go towards him, although I'm not sure he will, given the way things have gone there. Jorge Polanco, $3,000. Eddie Rosario is $3,100. Mitch Garver, $2,400. So whether you want a stud or a value play, the Twins can kind of fit there for you. Other side of that game is also okay from a stacking perspective. That's the Royals righties against Devin Smeltzer. Smeltzer got knocked around. He's got knocked around so far this year in relief. Last year, between relief and as a starter, Smeltzer a 19% strikeout rate, 41% hard hit rate, not a lot of ground balls. That's a tough combination. Now, he's been forced into the rotation here for the Twins due to the injuries that they've had. So I think that bodes well for the Royals. Again, wind blowing out, super hot, super humid, good hitting weather. I think it's a good time to check out the Kansas City bets. Jorge Soler is only $3,100, always has that double dong upside. Michael Franco is a bit lower in the order, $2,600. Salvador Perez hasn't really missed a beat despite missing all of last year. He's $2,600. So again, another source of value to help you get up to Trevor Bauer. So the Twins have value, the Royals have value, the Blue Jays have value, the Phillies have some depending on who bats where. I think that should allow you to get Bauer. But again, if you don't want to go there, you can also stack the Dodgers, the Twins, the Phillies, and go with someone like Mccutchen or Urias. That is all that we have for today. But again, back later today at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook pages, breaking down the slate as the lineups come out. So make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube page, but also make sure you check out the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Tom Vecchio is breaking down NHL and NBA DFS each night with the Daily Deke and the Daily ISO. Those go up the night before on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed for all of your bubble and hub DFS content. We have a NASCAR podcast in there for Saturdays and Sundays, races in Michigan, doubleheader in Michigan, strategies for that, and my favorite drivers. That is already posted. And of course, the MLB podcast every day. PGA back next week with Brandon Gadula back from vacation as well. Big thank you to Calvin Theobald, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Cal, as always. If you have questions for me before we get to the 4 p.m. show, I am on Twitter at JimSannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcasts. Want to thank you all for tuning in. Hopefully tonight goes better than last night. We'll cross our fingers and hope. We'll talk to you again next week. This has been the solo shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.